This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, the sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. cbdmountain.com. Thanks for tuning into the Move Mind podcast. Today, my guest is Cian Lanigan, strength and conditioning coach and owner of Enhanced Performance. Cian, thanks for coming on the show, mate. Pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Crazy times as the world is all going through right now, and especially yourself with Enhanced Performance, having a gym, an actual venue, and then all of a sudden being told, hang on a minute, that's not going to work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the remarkable task, and I'd tip of the cap to you, sir, of remodeling your entire business in 48 hours, more or less. Which is
literally 48 hours we did it. Yeah.
I wondered maybe if you could shed a little bit of light on how on earth did you manage that? No small task.
Yeah, so that was something we've been working on in the background, which really enabled us to pivot that quickly. I think that is worth stating that it would be impossible to do so if you didn't already have some traction in that world or something started at least. So we were lucky in that it was already something we identified and something that we wanted to work on. We had given ourselves basically 9 months to get it up and running. So it was September is when we were going to launch an online platform.
Yeah.
September 2020. Yeah. So all that being said, we did have 2 months of dipping our toe into the world of trialing a couple of different online platforms, researching whether the people were doing. We were really in the early stages, when we were just like getting an idea of what's even possible in the online world. Because before it was a nightmare. Last time I looked into it 5 to 10 years ago, there was nothing. There's no systems in place that made me feel like I could deliver a service that I would stand behind,
Yeah.
So we had already done a lot of the review. We had trialed out a couple of different companies. We had already signed up and decided to go with Team Builder was the company that we went with, which are primarily for strength and conditioning in high school and college. So they're more S&C orientated, which worked well for the programming that we do at Enhanced Performance.
Yeah.
So we already had that much done. But then to kind of go the play-by-play, it was everything changing. It was actually over the weekend on Friday, one of our staff's girlfriends came back from a holiday and presented with some COVID-like symptoms. Turned out she didn't have it, but that definitely put a stress response on us. And all of a sudden thinking like, is everyone at EP already infected before we even realized it was possible? Because did she transmit it to him and then did he transmit it to all of us? So we got a hardcore scare to start off, which probably also meant that we went full bore into the online even more hardcore than we would have initially, because it was like, man, if everyone is actually sick, we're not even going to have coaches to be able to run this, aside from many, government issued closures. So that weekend we wrote a bodyweight program and recorded all the exercises that we wanted for that and put all of that up onto YouTube initially and then onto Team Builder and programmed all that out and got that out to our members so they had that on their inbox by Monday evening. So we did that over the weekend. So and then we were forced to close by Tuesday. So it was kind of initially we were putting it up there. We were making adjustments that week to decrease our class sizes and change our whole class roster. And anyway, all these things to try and keep going in a modified setting.
Yeah.
And we only managed to run that system for all of one day. And then we decided to close down the gym entirely. So then that kind of backup project for people who didn't feel comfortable coming to the gym became the main program. And then we've just been figuring out ways since of how to grow and develop and enhance and make that online platform the best possible platform it can be.
Yeah, fantastic. Sounds like you've got adaptation built into your way of thinking there, like even like you said there, an enhanced approach to solving that problem. I like the fact that you had a little bit of prep there, just because that's where you were envisioning EP and going anyway in September, was to have an online component, an online.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that came from stepping back and kind of looking at where we are. I mean, commercial rent is just so damn high that like we're at a point now 5 years into our business in a second location, having already expanded. And really, we're at a point where we could multiply, we could branch out, but like the margin is always going to be, the profit margins are always going to be so tight with gyms that although we may do that, we needed to explore other ways of actually making that margin bigger, because it's easy to make more money if you spend more money. It's very hard to actually get that margin to grow. And we identified online training as a way to potentially do that. And piggyback off of all the work we had already laid out with the work we had done with our physical space and developing our training system and the leveled approach and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was kind of like the next phase and a way to attack that that next bottleneck in the whole system, which is just how much commercial rent is.
Yeah, it's a massive or can be a big obstacle, can't it, just to getting off the floor and getting things going. You've suddenly got this lump sum now that is needed every month. And
it bites you pretty hardcore. I'll never forget the first year of just like, normally what I'd done before was rented space from a gym years ago when I was just an independent personal trainer. And the beauty of that is, unless you've got some subleasing contract in place, it's all hour by hour. So August rolls around and you've only got 20 hours per month when everyone's disappeared, and it coincides with your rent going down. So it's a tighter month, but it's all fine. But when you still have to pay several $1,000s of rent in August, all of a sudden you got to be a little bit smarter with what you're doing with your money and plan it out a lot better.
Yeah, 100%. And what are some of your thoughts then, Cian, with regards to stuff moving online? Why is that happening? Now it's pretty obvious why it's happening, because of the the current state of affairs. But that was the general kind of trend anyway. Otherwise, you wouldn't have looked forward to that being in September. Why do you think it's starting to shift kind of that way? It seems like you've got to have that streak in your business, otherwise you're going to be left behind almost.
Potentially, yeah. Being a coach who just loves to have athletes in front of me, or even general population in front of me, like I'm all about seeing and coaching in person, picking up on the subtleties that you get from body language. Like that's really where I thrive. So I'm always going to have a gym. I'm always going to be coaching in person. I'm never going to go 100% online. Yeah. I think, there's an art and science to coaching, and the art really shines through in-person coaching. I think the scientific technician will potentially shine a little bit more online by writing these fancy Excel spreadsheet programs that might look like they're the bee's knees, but to really deliver and to really program and adapt that program to the day, to the person, to their mood, that's really where I think the elite coaches stand, miles ahead of the rest of the pack who are writing good programs, but maybe just don't have that final ability to deliver them. So yeah, although everything is moving online, I think in-person coaching is going to remain a primary pillar of the fitness industry. And I hope it does. I think it needs to. Why it's moving online, I think, I think a lot of people, it's all down to a timing thing, and it's quicker, it's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper. I think a lot of the times you just got to view this whole system from the consumer's point of view. Like the price point is a big grab for a lot of people. I mean, in-person training, especially if you're doing it one-on-one, which is a model we moved away from. But if you are, charging whatever, $75 an hour, twice a week, for a month, that's like $600 to $800 a month. Like that's, how many people can really throw that kind of money at a personal trainer ongoing every single month? So I think the online component allows for the price point to drop down, but then you're sacrificing other things, of course. And I think the real goal as we go online is how little can we sacrifice, even though we're offering a price point decrease? How close can we get to our original service? What we're not doing is writing like a 4 or 6 week program and then just having that as an ebook and then just selling that for like $20. Like that's a whole different model. And I think that just, you give up so much when you go that low, although you get your price point low. I think going up a little bit higher is really where the sweet points is. But, I think that's obviously for every coach and business owner to kind of figure out, like, what is the best value for like the dollar value on the service you're giving. Like we want to be a little bit higher because we want to deliver a better service.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And when it comes to delivering that service, Cian, what are some of the key things that you made sure you wanted to include in the online stuff that was reflective of the in-person or sort of EP venue model?
So one of the big things was the technical coaching component and the ability to get really good feedback on what you're doing yourself. So we've decided to go into two different ways of doing that. One, in the Team Builder app, we have a feedback loop with the coaches. So as an athlete, you can, when you're doing your workout, you can just attach a video to any of the tracking features inside the app. And then that will submit it to a coach at EP. We can review the video and offer feedback. So that is on a kind of, well, it can be pretty damn quick, but we give ourselves 24 hours to get that feedback loop given back to the athlete. So it's more so for when they're back at their next training session, they can review the notes from what they had submitted the previous session and then hopefully make the adjustments. And then in addition to that, we're also doing Zoom classes, which in all honesty are good for giving technical coaching, but our primary reason for doing the Zoom class was more so to try and carry over the culture of the gym into our online platform, try to allow an area for people to, show up and allow for the community to also get online. That was a real thing, because that really distinguishes us from a lot of other gyms. Like we have a culture that's very inclusive. So many people come to our gym who say they've never even thought about walking in the door of a gym before because they felt intimidated or it's just not the space for them or whatever. We've kind of carved out a bit of a niche for making those people comfortable because we have no real ego. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just applying science to training, and we'll welcome anyone from a high performance athlete who really wants to carve out that last 5% to someone who has never excelled in physical activity and over their life has developed a bit of a negative relationship with it. So we wanted to make sure that community from high performance to welcoming got carried over online, and that was another reason why we went with Team Builder. So inside that app there's a team feed where people can post almost like a Facebook page, and you can kind of like share how your training sessions are going, make fun of the coaches for picking hard workouts, giving fist bumps for personal bests when they pop up on the team feed, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, fantastic.
So that's helped.
Yeah, massive. I can see how it would work on Zoom, where you can have a group of people that would be in one of your tiered classes at EP normally, and then having actually all of their faces and vibes there. You could recreate. It's never going to be exactly the same, but you can definitely continue the momentum. That's a smart shout. It can definitely still feel more like it would otherwise just being in your living room on your own.
Yeah, it's been interesting. There's some pros to it as well. Like one of the things that we were shocked about is at the start we have different levels. So normally in the real world you'd come to a level 1 class and you'd separately come to a level 2 class and you'd move up the ranks and blah blah blah. In the Zoom classes, just the way we started it out, we decided to let everyone attend at the same hour, and we really leaned heavily on the app. So when we had 12 people showing up and there was 4 different workouts technically happening, or 5 different workouts technically happening, each with some level of customization for each member. It was potentially a nightmare, but yet we had it all in the app. So after the warm-up where everyone kind of does a similar thing, we then pause for a moment, tell everyone to pull up their phone. They get to review the videos if they're not 100% sure, and then they just get going in their workout. And it's really for the coach then to foster the energy and the and all of that, but not really be an instructor, so to speak. Really allowing the coach to coach. And it's actually enabled that a little bit more, because sometimes when we come to the gym, we kind of baby our clients a little bit more. Our complex A is a deadlift and this, and here are the 3 key points of this, and then make sure you're training at this intensity, and we kind of spoon feed them a little bit. Whereas when it's online and it's in the app, it's like it's all already out for them, and it's like, all right, take 2 minutes, review it, get going, and if you look lost, talk to us. But really, we're here to coach and refine versus spoon feed and kind of lead, so to speak. So it's actually been, there's aspects of this that we might carry back into the physical space once we go back there again.
Yeah, it's interesting what you described there, Cian. Sounds a little bit like you've taught them how to read that funny language that is programming, which to a lot of S&C coaches is second nature, but to a lot of people, they look at a program and how on earth does that read? And if you're feeding the points out to them, they don't really associate with what they're reading to processing, right? It's a bit like using sat nav and not reading a map. Whereas now you're actually encouraging them to go through the program, read it for themselves, ask questions if they have any, and then just kind of, express what they've seen there on the app into some sort of session. Yeah, interesting. Far more proactive.
Yeah, and they retain it more, and take a bit more ownership. We always had some members who would do that naturally, but others who really struggled with that. And as a whole, everyone has just gotten even better at it. So it's been, in some ways, in that regard, everyone has leveled up a little bit by doing this online training. Yeah, it's just new and different, and it's cool.
Yeah, fantastic. I like the positive, the unexpected positives. Yeah, that's brilliant.
You gotta try.
100%. And you mentioned there a little bit about like you've got a graded kind of tiered system at EP. Could you unpack that a little bit? Is that something that you've carried through to the online stuff, or has everyone been chucked back into like one group? How does that kind of work?
No, we carried it all over because that's the thing that distinguishes us. Really, how much time and how far back do you really want to go? I guess let's
dive in, mate. Yeah, like, give me an abbreviated, like overarching, and then
to give a bit of context, again, we're coming to this with. So we launched the training system about 5 or 6 years ago, but previous to that, we had the same amount of years experience as personal trainers, both myself and my wife, Lynn Laporte. And it was really in the personal training world that we discovered that model just, it didn't allow us to train the people that we wanted to train and make the money that we needed to make to have a life. You basically were on the seesaw where you either could charge a lot of money per hour, but then you ended up training clients that I really didn't resonate with. For example, there was one woman who came in one day, 20 minutes into the session, having done nothing but a stretch or two, and I'm trying to get her going, but she's just no interest in training.
Sure.
And she ended up complaining about her crew on her boat. I'm like, how did I end up with these clients? It's just because I had a really high price point.
Right.
So that didn't work. And then flip the coin the other way. And again, you just get really low price points for one-on-one hours, but you end up training, your friends or the people who you kind of want to have in front of you, or the motivated athlete who you're kind of half sponsoring, but then you're just not making any money. So really the training system emerged out of a realization that the personal training model just didn't allow us to train the people we wanted to train. It just failed us, basically. Like, we were told that we could make a living doing this, and I didn't experience that, and I think that's something a lot of personal trainers will probably resonate with.
Agreed,
so we moved to a small group semi-private model that was initially pushed forward by the Cosgroves about 6 or 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago at this point. Read that and many other business books, and really came to realize that we needed to switch from a package-based thing where you sell like 4, 6, 10 sessions at a time. You get a lump sum payment, and then you just hope they renew at the end. And we switched over to an auto-renewing monthly membership. And then out of that process of like, okay, these are the logical steps of our thought process, then we realized we needed a training system to really make small group training work. So in all of that, reviewing how other people are doing it, we looked, not just at personal training, but strength and conditioning, martial arts, all these other, like, how do we teach sport, or how do we teach movement to people? Like, let's open up and see how everyone does it. And in fairness, I think the martial art world has it, they're doing it the best. You don't go into your first ever jiu-jitsu class and just roll with a black belt and get beasted with some hit version of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like, let's just roll for 5 minutes on your first day. Like, it's so obscene that would, even, potentially be considered. But yet that's what often happens in fitness training, because, more is never enough. You just got to do more, push more, sweat the weakness out, all this bullshit, and instead, really building off of viewing strength as a skill set, which is something Pavel would talk about, or any of the real strong people in the past. Like, it's a skill set that needs to be practiced. And when you take it at that kind of approach, it's then like, okay, well, we need to learn these things, these certain movements, these certain principles before we can move on to the next level and the next level. So obviously this took years of experience as a personal trainer to kind of have enough of a background to know this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And then through trial and error, we ended up creating the equivalent of a white belt and a full ranking system. So 5 levels, each with their own benchmarks. So they have to have strength standards attached to them. So they have to lift a certain amount. They have to have the movement curriculum at that level understood, which is anywhere between 30 to 50 kind of movements that they need to be able to demonstrate. And then also a kind of X factor. Are they, at a mental place where they're ready to take on a higher level of training, a higher level of stress? Even if they had the benchmarks passed and their curriculum passed, we might hold them at a level if we thought that they just needed to develop a little bit more as an athlete. And refine the fundamentals even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see there's a rough kind of time spent on average at each level between people? Does it take longer to go higher or shorter? How does that work?
It all depends obviously on the background, but in general we would have people in our level 1 for 4 to 6 weeks. Some people have been in there for only 2 weeks. Some people have been in there for 6 months. So it really does vary. So level 2, let's say 4 to 6 weeks on average. And then, that's level 1. Level 2, then it starts to take longer, just like martial arts. Each level gets a little bit slower. You almost have your stripes at each level. It's not just a straight jump. It's like the whole thing slows down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the same with us. So level 2 is anywhere between 3 months and 12 months. And then a little bit longer for level 3. And then maybe longer still beyond that. But even at that, we would say to anyone that at level 3 is where we would recommend every person in general population strives to get to level 3. But we don't actually say that necessarily is it a goal to go to level 4 or level 5. And I think that's one thing that we try to put a lot of effort in is how strong is strong enough? Like if you're doing this not for your primary hobby, like this is cross training for another thing. Like you're doing this to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or you're doing this better to hike and mountain bike and be able to push hard in the BC outdoors and not develop, knee issues or low back issues or whatever. How strong do you actually need to get all those rewards before you just start on diminishing returns? And really, why are you now spending time in the gym when the whole reason you came to the gym was to spend time outside? So there needs to be this balance of, how strong is strong enough. So for us, that's level 3. And then only if it's kind of becoming a hobby, or you have the interest in kind of pushing it a little bit more, maybe a bit of a competitive side, but you want to then push it up to level 4 and even level 5.
Fantastic. And what is it about level 3 that makes it so special? I mean, they say 3 is the magic number, but what is it to you that really shines about the 3rd level there to kind of tick the box for the average person?
Yeah. One, it's legit. I mean, it's hard to pass. We've had members in the gym for several years who still haven't got up to level 3. To me, I think like even a step back maybe would be a way of answering that. For me, I thought that level 4 was really an excellent representation of beyond level 4. If you were to think about like endurance, power, speed, strength as bar charts, level 4 is like represents everything being at a maximum level before you have to start sacrificing. So think about at the Olympics, right? Like the person who's running the marathon cannot, be competitive in Olympic weightlifting. They're just not really strong, but they're massively into. So taking a step back from specialization, what's the highest level we can get everything before we start to specialize? So for me, that's level 4. That's what I've attempted to do in creating the benchmarks for level 4. And level 5 for us is actually, okay, now you're specializing. Okay, now you've got the biggest, broadest athletic base. How do you want to take that? Do you want to take that into the power sports? Do you want to take that into the endurance world? Or do you want to go skill-based in your specific thing and just maintain your performance qualities at that level? So that was level 5. For me, then a step back beyond that, level 3, I think it's the area that's not, the max of everything before there starts to be diminishing returns. It's probably the B standard of everything. Yeah. So, and for a lot of times, in many different aspects of life, I find that getting B standard is really as good as you need to get. Like there's diminishing returns after that. Then really, do you need to get A standard? So yeah, level 3 to me is like B standard across the board. And you might have some qualities that are above that. Everyone's has their own strengths. But that I think is what makes level 3 so effective. And it also lines up with, it has hard mobility requirements to it as well. So it keeps people honest in terms of their base level of movement when they're chasing some performance gains. And that I think is a key component to do that. That's actually held people in the level 2 for us, as we don't do too much overhead work in level 2. And that's one of the big things we have to clear before we allow people enter level 3. So it keeps them really honest. If they're really strong and eager and they're in level 2, 6 months later, they're going to be really diligent on their shoulder correctives or seeing their therapist or whatever needs to be done to get that overhead position established, whereas otherwise I think it's easy just to ignore it and just continue working on your strengths.
Yeah, we fall into that trap quite often because we like doing what we're good at, right? We don't often bring up what we suck at. So I like the fact that there's somewhat of a syllabus there to keep people honest. And when it comes to the Olympic lifts, Cian, do you include those in? Is that like a more specific thing later down the line, or do you get derivatives of the lifts that creeping in at the 3s and 4s? How does that kind of work?
Well, specifically with the barbell Olympic lifts, yes, we do them at level 4, generally hang power variations, although we do work up to some full classic Olympic lifts. That is really being driven by members who have done the hang power variations, getting decent at it, and then starting to do their homework and look online and see full Olympic weightlifting and wanting to do the full versions. So we program in a little bit to keep them happy. But from a pure performance quality point of view, like how do we make an athlete really explosive? How do we make an athlete able to absorb force in a catch position? The massive carryover qualities from Olympic weightlifting shine through in hang power variations. So we don't really need to do the full variation of from the floor, ass to grass catch, stand up, and then move on from there, regardless of whether you're doing the split jerk or the snatch, so just simply standing up with it. So there's no real need from a performance point of view to get general population doing the full versions of it. So we focus mostly on the hang power variations and more so the clean than the snatch. And then directly back from that, in level 3, we do some exposure to the barbell, but really we take our hip power category of training and we utilize the kettlebell more in level 3 and level 2. And then regressing back again for level 2 and level 1, we do more jumping variations. So we're still working that explosive hip extension pattern. We're just doing it with less complicated tools, but you can still train it just as well. I mean, you don't have to go to Olympic lifting. I think this is one thing that some strength and conditioning coaches lean on too heavily, like doing trap bar jumps and then some plyo work where you're just doing hard impacts off the ankle complex and trying to get off the ground hard. That combination will likely outperform Olympic lifting variations for a long time because there's such a learning effect with Olympic lifting. Like you're really sacrificing your ability to put weight on the bar and express high levels of power with Olympic lifting for at least 6 months because it's so bloody technical, right? So it's a real journey to go on. But if you just have 3 months to get someone explosive, I actually don't choose Olympic lifting because I'm wasting time coaching a technical movement. Let's do something easier that still allows them to exert the same levels of force or close to, or just maximum levels of effort. That's really all it comes down to. Yeah. In easier to do variations.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like you say, you're wasting a third or more of your time just trying to explain how to catch the bar and be technical and perform it safely enough to start loading. Yeah, you've wasted, especially when it comes to athletes, you wasted a lot of time. But I do like what you said there is if you want to go down the journey, you can. And some of the level 4s have kind of had a taste of it and they're like, you know what? Cleaning is bloody fun and I want to see what else this has got for me. I was definitely one of those people going down the wormhole and got into lifting as a kind of side hobby in itself, really.
It's one of the pillars, Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting and calisthenics. They're kind of the 3 big ones. And sprinting too, of course, track and field work. Yeah, and I think the big thing, regardless, it could be the same conversation about a sprinting as well. I think it popped up recently as a quote. You know, as strength and conditioning people are generalists, we want to pull from the amazing work that Olympic weightlifting coaches have done and elite level track and field coaches have done. But we don't want to get our athletes, if they're not track and field athletes, we don't need to get them sprinting like a track and field athlete. We just need them to have basic good mechanics. And exactly the same with Olympic lifting. We don't need them to do the sport of Olympic lifting. We just need them to have good lifting mechanics. And I think that sometimes gets lost as we get pulled down the rabbit hole of overcoaching exercises when, you know, we really just need to get the key components out of it, which is often just powerful hip extension.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. Like you said, the power clean variation, that's what it gives you.
It really does,
one of the big things,
yeah.
And then I suppose one of the challenges that you might have had then recently, shifting to online, is not everyone's got a barbell. Not everyone's got the luxury to swing a nice bar around and, oh, how we wish we did, because now we realize what we valued the most. But how are you trying to like adapt the EP model online to when equipment now is suddenly, it's become scarce?
Yeah, so we've done two things. One, we really took our time in developing the second round of bodyweight programming. So like I was initially saying earlier, we kind of got the first one up quick. It was a great bodyweight program. I still think it was, you know, way ahead of the average bodyweight program out there. But that gave us 4 to 5 weeks to really sit down and kind of really review, you know, not just basic stuff like, are we working each muscle group of the body, but are we hitting in our 2-day bodyweight program? Are we hitting each area of the force velocity curve? Are we hitting each joint from each plane of motion? Are we hitting, you know, different speeds, different tempos, different efforts in all muscle groups, you know, on top of the basics? So that took a while and was influenced by several people out there. One of the big things that I think everyone is seeing these days has been Carmen's work to popularize isometric work, which I really think is quite brilliant.
It's fantastic.
So yeah, so simple. And you know, it's one of those things that you learn about real quick in an undergraduate, like in school, but like you never think it's going to be useful. So like, because why the fuck would I do that when I have a barbell?
Until the day you don't.
Until the day you don't, exactly. So reading over that, if there's anyone out there listening, I recommend going to her website, coachbot.com, and finding her resources and reading through it. Because it's stuff that we all know if you've studied sports science. But yet sometimes you forget these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. You know, it's so easy to get comfortable with the 1,000 or so pieces that you use on a regular basis that you forget about the other 500. So that little PDF just ebook reminded me of how powerful those can be.
100%. They are very, very good. I remember Bruce Lee making a little contraption with a chain and a bar and a carabiner that you could clip at different heights, platforms, stand on it, and suddenly the amount of ISOs you can do, especially in the pulling and sort of overhead pressing.
Well, and even, you know, in the high performance world, even some of the testing had moved to isometric work. Like a famous one in the last 8 to 10 years, even more so famous in the last 5 years, has been the mid-thigh pull, where you set up a barbell that's immovable at mid-thigh. So you measure from your 2 points and get that exact distance. And that's a very accredited way of testing peak power in a laboratory setting. So the way they do that is they'd be standing on a force plate platform, so that as they're trying to lift the bar, you're able to measure the force that is being pushed into the floor.
Right.
How quickly they can ramp that, and also the peak of that. There's different qualities that you can pull out of that to kind of profile athletes, and it's a very safe test because unlike a 1 rep max deadlift, you're in more favorable joint position, so you're less likely to strain. You know, athletes doing this as a maximum version of a test.
Right.
So that's been around for a while, and you know, it's becoming more and more of a staple that more and more clubs and high performance teams are using. So it was there in the background, you know, as a method. And she just kind of brought it back to the forefront. So there's that in the bodyweight program, and some higher speed movement and some stuff that's pulling from French contrast training for the higher levels, where you're pairing together some of those high effort methods with lots of rest, and then some very dynamic efforts, as well as just some good quality, rounding out kind of movements like auxiliary exercises, just making sure we've got all our planes of motion, all our main movers are getting challenged. So the putting time into a bodyweight program was the main answer to that. When people have no equipment, like, you really don't need equipment. I'm confident if I got the right athlete, I could get them to the Olympics with bodyweight training, like, and one or two tools like a towel, like, you really don't need much. But we have gone on, because I know, like you're saying, the feel of some equipment and some external load in your hands, it's satisfying. Forget about, I might say that we can get bloody close with body weight, like 90%, 95% of what you can do at weight training, but damn, it just feels good to do weight training, so we got to do some of that too.
Absolutely, yeah. If you've got the hunger for it, I mean, I think the hungry don't stay hungry for long, especially in these kind of scenarios. And if you're one of those people that likes to shift something around, you're going to go and find it. Like, I found a tire in a field and a couple of big rocks and a log, and and getting down to it. And I suppose you'll probably notice it with your population at EP too, like through the online training. There's those that are going to be hungry and get after it.
Yeah, what we did first of all is we emptied our gym of equipment. So we found the members that needed it, and then we broke it up by level. So level 2s and 3s got kettlebells. They got 2 kettlebells, a heavier one and a lighter one. Level 4s got barbells and plates. And level 1s have to train with body weight. They don't train with external load. Well, they would in the gym normally with some light kettlebells and stuff, but they didn't get access to the equipment. And then that was setting up an option, because everything we're doing now, like I was saying, this isn't a patchwork just as our gym remains closed. This is a whole service that we were looking to build out regardless. So it's just sped up that whole service. So the way we'll move it long term is we'll likely pair with an equipment company that we buy all our equipment with. They're Canadian, Bells of Steel. Highly recommend them. They've got fantastic products. And we'll likely create a package with them. So you could sign up for our strength-based programming, and $300 to $500 would get you a couple kettlebells, a couple of resistance bands, and that would all it would be a package that we put together for people who are looking to do our programming. So then you could kind of get a basic level of equipment going yourself at home.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's been the way that we've been doing it so far.
Perfect. Yeah, that's smart. That's really smart. I like that idea of just getting the items you need delivered as well. You can just get stuck in. And I think a lot of, I noticed with your model, Cian, especially with EP, it's very educational. You learn a lot, whether you're trying to or not, whether you're turning up to learn or just go through the motions, you're going to learn something anyway. And I think now, if there's more opportunity than ever, it's equipping people with the understanding and the education. Like, this is how you can progress kettlebell movements to serve you. This is how you can progress, even more importantly, body weight movements as a beginner to serve you and get you where you need to the next level. You're almost giving them mini systems to work with now that you're not able to have them under your own roof, kind of straight away. I think that's really cool. It's like it's basically teaching people to fish, isn't it? Rather than just being feeding them fish the whole time.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's an approach to training. I think that's one of the things that's really distinguishes the difference that I feel. I mean, it's everywhere, but coming from Europe, like I'm originally from Ireland, I came over to Vancouver 12 years ago. And although this aspect is over in Europe as well, North America specifically really has an attachment to just exhausting yourself in the gym.
Culturally.
It's culturally, it's just a thing that that it's part of the fitness industry, and I hate like the industry, like it's a no, this is a profession. Like, why the fuck are we an industry? Like, nothing about that feels or sounds right to me. So one of the big things that we really stress is that we're not working out. We're not trying to work ourselves out, or we're not trying to exhaust ourselves. What we're trying to do is lay down a building block so that the next day when we go home and sleep and rest and come back, we're able to lay down another building block that's slightly different to the one before it. and that there's a progressive approach to planned out training where you lay down these building blocks over time, and it ends up really building you to a place where, man, it can honestly change your life, because when you train that way, your physical attributes just build and build and build, and then that inevitably overflows into every aspect of your life. I mean, it really, when you feel strong, powerful, fit, and you have just vitality, like there's no way that's not gonna, level up your whole, your whole vibrancy. Like everything about you is going to get pushed up just from training.
Agreed.
So as that's the approach we take, we want to communicate it to members. Like, we're doing this today for this reason, so that in 4 weeks and we transition to this, you're able to do it and you don't break apart. And and I think that only encourages as well people to stay consistent with it, because it's the snowball effect. It's just like, once you put in enough consistency and you just get the snowball rolling, it's so hard to stop it from rolling at that point. It's almost inevitable that it's coming down the mountain. You eat better, you sleep better. You're not gonna, you don't want to get off the horse, so to speak. It keeps going and can go for years. And I think that's the real powerful thing with training, is it's cumulative. Whereas for me, working out, it's very short-sighted. A workout, even think of a WOD, right? It's a workout of the day. It's so narrow. It's so like, how quickly can I exhaust myself in 60 minutes? Like that's as long term as the thought process is. It's just a whole very short-sighted way of thinking how you can tire yourself out quickly. It's not training. It's feeding an ego. It's competition is what it is. And I love competition, don't get me wrong, but I train to compete. I don't have competition in my training.
Yeah. You're not a competitive trainer per se. No, there's a big difference there.
A massive difference. And that was hammered home to me at a high performance conference once, when one of the speakers made the point that his athletes really only truly put out 100% effort every 4 years. Like once every 4 years, that's their chance to legitimately twist that throttle until there's no more in it. And that, they might have some, important qualification races and stuff like that where they're encouraged to hit 95%. But he was quite adamant that when the higher you go up the ladder of elite level athletics, the less often you legit go all out. Because at that point, you're so capable of emptying the tank because you're so damn good at it. You have to be really smart about when you put your efforts in. Like one hard training session, and that can screw up your whole next 2 weeks of training. Like it becomes a very disciplined approach. But if you can put your time in and effort in, it's really, I think it's long-term, it's progressive, it's building. It's just a way different place to be in. And that's what I want to promote. That's regardless of whether you do it with EP or someone else. Find someone who you can get into a good training routine with, as opposed to just working out.
Yeah, agreed. Was that one of the many kind of reasons then that catalyzed you to move away from the fitness industry and into your profession and your coaching profession, and starting EP and not being a sort of a standalone personal trainer, just getting, I'm sure it wasn't your approach to just gas people anyway and just get them knackered in 60 minutes, but that is part and parcel of that world. So it makes sense why you might want to leave that behind and actually promote a different approach, and arguably one that is used far more commonly in every sporting endeavor. In the sporting world, this is normal, not going all balls to the wall every session, but for somehow it's been separated from the fitness world, and that's become the norm there.
Yeah. And what's really, what's concerning is that it's now so powerfully dense and concentrated in the fitness world that it's unfortunately flowing the opposite way, where now you're starting to see high level athletes who don't yet have exposure to really top level coaches yet. But they've all the desire and everything, and they're just being led down the wrong path because they haven't been educated by it yet. They haven't yet got to the national level, where they're really surrounded by good coaches.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a shame because you just lose so many people, both not getting them to where they could get if you had a more sustainable long-term approach, but also just straight up burning them out because you can't, like your adrenals just can't take that level of stress that regularly. And, if you're fit, young, and, sleep well, you might be able to knock 2 years out of it, but you're just going to burn out. You can't keep it up forever. And what's hard is everyone thinks that they're the exemption to the rule. And I think why I speak so highly of this is because I thought I was too. Like I burnt myself out road cycling. I had to quit competitive road cycling because I pushed too hard at a young age. Because I just, you think you can do it all. Well, I'm special. I'm winning races now, so.
Yeah, interesting. Let's zoom back in time a little bit then, Cian. So you said, a bit of road, but I know you mentioned you played rugby as well. Growing up, was that your kind of first introduction to sport? Was the rugby sort of contact world, or where did the sporting world begin?
Yeah, Gaelic football actually. So yeah, Gaelic football is an Irish national sport. There's two of them, hurling and Gaelic football. So I played that from an area in Ireland, County Kerry, where it's it's how you. It's your social currency. You gotta play. If you want to live in that region of the world, you gotta play. So it was Gaelic football for a few years, but that's really young. That's like 8 to 12 or something like that. And I always wanted to play rugby because I just wanted to be more physical. I love contact sports. And my neighbor, who was a couple of years older than me, got access to playing with rugby earlier than me, so we would often play together or throw around the ball or kick a ball or whatever. So I gradually got pulled into that, and then the real thing that shone out with rugby is the culture of it. It pulled me in, and I loved it. I loved the club house. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the genuine good people who are in that sport. It really is a good crowd of people, where it's real common where like you would put in a hard tackle, you would hear their rib cage deflate against your shoulder. You'd almost come up with concern, and they'd only applaud you or give you a tap on the back like, Jesus mate, that was a good tackle. Like I love that kind of stuff where you can take it on the chin and then go back to the clubhouse after the game and buy them a beer for like, sorry man, I didn't mean to tackle you that hard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that stuff is just
a fantastic culture, rugby culture.
Yeah, like I never got that competitive with it. When I went up to university in Limerick, that's really one of the heart beats of Irish rugby, as well as up in Dublin. And then I tried to play up there, but that was just too big of a jump up. I'm not made out for high level rugby. I'm not that strong. I just got hammered. But it was fun. So it was really the culture of rugby that I took out of that, the team sport aspect of it. And trying to even, I loved playing a captain's role. Sometimes I wasn't the captain, but I really like that kind of concept of trying to get a group together, get them all moving. I always resonated with that.
Yeah. And was that a natural transition then at some point, thinking, I want to be an S&C coach and I want to go down that road? Or did that come much later?
Yeah, I think S&C really emerged after. So it was cycling really that kept me very focused in my teenage years, and that I got to a high level. So that I was in national programs and I was competing in Europe on Irish teams and stuff like that, and that really got my dipped my toe into the water of high performance training. Even though I was young, we were getting coaches. Anytime we had a camp together, a coach would come in externally and give us a presentation and tell us how to train properly, tell us how to eat properly, all this kind of stuff. So they're just trying to educate, youth high performance programs, really, of like, here's all the material you need to be a good athlete. And I really found it fascinating. I tried to apply as much as I could. And it came to the point then of in Ireland choosing what university program to kind of go into, and the only thing at that point that I was really passionate about was high performance sport. So I went into the sports science program, and didn't really know where it was going to lead to. Even people ask me, what are you going to do with this? Like, if you want to own a gym, just go own a gym. Like, why are you doing a 4-year undergraduate to, not really connecting? Because even nowadays, but this is like 15 years ago, there's so much people who don't understand how scientific it can get. It's a lot more than just sitting on a machine and pushing some weight. There's like the wormhole goes deeper than that. So even at the time, I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I think at that time, I again was really interested in high performance sport and wanted to get into some national level program of some description and work with Olympic level athletes. But that's just such a hard world to get into that I wasn't able to really get doors open. And as I continued to try, I just slowly puttered away at gaining experience wherever I could, which started off as personal training and some coaching on the side with teams and things like that. And slowly that just transitioned to gym ownership and now online personal training ownership.
It comes full circle. Yeah. Yeah. But arguably coming from a very sound place and with a level of adaptation within it that would serve any person, anywhere, anytime, I'd like to think you've given it far more thought than just, like you said, an ebook for $20 to sell online. This has got, the last half of your life more or less behind it in terms of what you've learned and then carried forward, and way
exactly.
more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, the hope, again, kind of like my personal big picture goal is I am fed up and annoyed of the fitness industry. Because even thinking of it from an exclusively personal point of view, like, okay, I came through these high performance programs, I learned how to train properly, and then I burnt out and I had to quit, took a year out to recharge. And now I'm at a point where I'm, I kind of know what I need to do in a gym. I know how to train myself, but I don't want to compete. I just want to do it to a high level, do it right, get the most out of it. And there was nowhere where I could do that. It was either signing up to Steve Nash Fitness World and just being, or an equivalent, and just being in an environment that is not high performance, but it doesn't even need to be high performance. It wasn't professional. It just was, it's just, there's a lot of like, it's just crap. It's like half hookup culture is in there, half like just garbage stuff is in there, and just like no one really is doing anything worthwhile. And anyway, it's just not where I wanted to be. And then I had lost access to the high performance centers or gyms because I was no longer a carded athlete. So I wasn't able to get into them anymore. So it became really hard to find a training space that was conducive to good quality training, but yet wasn't stuck up its own ass either. Like that's the other thing. You go too technical sometimes, and you just get so, turns into a negative thing again. Yeah. So like, where was that sweet spot? Like that's just what I basically built what I wanted. That's really what it came down to.
Excellent.
So we have it now, hopefully.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, if it comes from a place of what do I need, it's going to be, you're going to pay some attention. You're really going to pay some attention and craft it, for you to be happy with it. You're going to
and I think another way of saying it is it's designed for the customer. It's not like, EP is not a gym that was made by a business owner who saw a business opportunity. Like this was made by a failed high-level athlete who is interested in training, and like I'm coming at it from the consumer point of view. Even to that regard, one thing that really makes us unique, and one thing for any other business owners out there to even consider, like one of the big changing points in my framework was for people's success, what's the most important thing from out of the things that we can prescribe? So the FIT principle, right? Frequency, intensity, time, and type. If you could only pick one to guarantee that they do a good job of in order to guarantee success, which one would it be? Frequency, intensity, time, or type? And when, like, to just spoon feed the answer, it's not intensity, it's not time or type or, exercise selection. It's frequency. You got to do it regularly. So coming back to to quickly kind of wrap all of this up, like the personal training model doesn't encourage frequency, because going from once a week to twice a week to 3 times per week, you're just paying more and more and more money, and it's just not even attainable for a lot of people. So it only encourages you to fall back a step. You know, when you have to tighten the shoelaces, like you when means are tight, you're moving from twice a week to once a week, and if you're at once a week, you're falling back to once every second week or once a month. It only encourages you to move to a lower frequency level, which is only going to fall to less progress, less improvement. So our whole model was flipped the script on that, and instead you just pay a fat monthly fee, and you can come now as often as you want. It started off as up to 3 times per week. So then if you're only coming once per week, it's a bloody expensive training session. But if you come 3 times per week, it's the best value, cheapest training system or training per session costs in Vancouver by a considerable margin. So it's just built into the system to get the frequency up. And I think, you know, if you made it this far, listen to me yabber on, if nothing else was taken out, but trying to optimize your model for training frequency, that I think is a thing that a lot of people just aren't even clued into. It's not about intensity. It's not about exercise type or selection. None of that is as important as frequency. Or to phrase it a different way, a terrible training program done consistently well will always outperform the world's best training program done super inconsistently.
All right.
Like, it doesn't matter if I got the best training program that was even designed specifically for me, and I only did it once a week, maybe twice a month or something like that. And then I just downloaded that shitty $10 ebook, but I did that every second day for 6 months. That's going to get me further to my goals than the world's best training program. And I think we get so obsessed as coaches of writing the best training program that we forget that, you know, if you were to simplify it, a B standard training program done with A standard frequency or just adherence to it just outperforms every time an A standard program done to a B or C standard frequency. Yeah. So I think, you know, flipping that priority in people's brains is really important, and developing, you know, layering in your whole business model to be built around it, I think is the key thing that we do behind the scenes that isn't often noticed at all.
No, yeah, I wouldn't have figured that out at first sight, I think, from the naked eye or from the average person's eye. But it's funny that you say that frequency trumps all there. Joe from UBC said exactly the same thing on the show last week under the guise of consistency. He said the thing we should be promoting right now, to bless him, 650 athletes across 25 teams, all with the rug pulled from under their feet, is consistency. Consistency needs to be the message broadcast through UBC right now, and it sounds exactly what you're saying there. That's because at the end of the day, that's going to carry them through more than anything else.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, you know, I don't have equipment, body weight. Like I was saying, I think our body weight program is rock solid, one of the best things out there. I think we're getting 90 to 95% of what you could get with a body weight program. But, you know, step back from that, just a general half decent body weight program, do that like consistently. And again, consistently doesn't mean 6 times per week. It means like 3 times per week forever, and never less than 3 times per week. Like it's hard. It's easy to have motivation for 2 weeks and knock out, you know, 12 training sessions in 14 days. It's a whole different ball game to, you know, to never drop below a certain level for a really long period of time. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the thing you need to hit. Like, motivation comes and goes. You got to have a system underneath that holds you, and that's why I think it's, again, so important to train, because it further enhances this ability, because the snowball starts building, right? Like, you get 4 months into that, and you're not going to train once per week, because, you know, you don't want to. At that point, you recognize how the little bit you're doing that day helps the thing you're going to do the next week, and it all is part of the big thing. And it just holds you to a higher standard when you're in that system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm talking now, you know, like you mentioned it, the bigger picture. Obviously, recovery comes into the bigger picture. It's not just staying at the 3 times a week necessarily and just staying there, but also are you recovering between those sessions properly? What are some of the things you've been saying to the kind of the EP crew in this time when it comes to recovery methods. Most people have got more time on their hands now than perhaps they did before. Is there anything you're suggesting down the recovery front that's kind of like, yeah, do these when you're on non-training days?
Yeah. So, man, there's so many things you can do. This is a real passion project of mine that I really immersed myself into. I broke my back 4 or 5 years ago. I fractured 2 vertebrae, jumping my bike in Whistler Bike Park and not landing properly. And then on top of that serious back injury, really struggled through the first 2 years of running a physical space, like actually holding rent for 2 years. That was just a massive level of stress that I never knew. I didn't expect that much, and I also didn't know that I would react that much to financial stress. Like, it really affected like my physical body in ways that I didn't expect. So between those two things, I had to completely stop using external load in my training sessions for about 2 years. To not use any scientific terms really, but I would explain it quite simply as I had zero vitality. Like, I was just worn out from a serious injury, and then just long-term, consistent, sustained pressure from trying to drag this business and make it successful. And out of that stuff, there's so many things you can do. I think first of all, again, don't obsess over the perfect thing. Get frequency high. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything new here, but slow tempo breathing is the king of recovery. It sets up a whole bunch of stuff. I think, taking 20 breaths at a 4, 2, 4, 2 tempo, inhale for 4, pause for 2, exhale for, that's about 5 minutes. So I think doing that on a daily basis sets up the foundation for potentially transitioning into a meditation practice. I personally really struggle with meditation, so I find having something to focus on is really, really good. That's where I actually like using a metronome, because aside from just holding you to the count, I find it really engaging to try and match my, let's say, exhale to 4 seconds. So 2 seconds in, I'm 50% air out. Whereas I found once I got really specific with it like that, I found especially on my exhales, I would want to let all my air out in the first 1 to 2 seconds, which made a really long exhale hold. So I actually have to train myself to slow that exhale down. So that's one way of just making breath work a bit more engaging, and maybe moving towards a meditation practice. I think that's huge for recovery. Sleep is, if I said breath practice was the king of recovery, but that's not true. It's breath. It's sleep.
You're getting those breaths in your sleep sometimes.
Yeah. Well, if you, especially if you're anxious right now and struggling to get to sleep, using a breath technique or a meditation technique is a great way to help yourself transition into it. I think those are the big ones. And then, I mean, there are so many things you can do. I think one of the big things for taking a step back from training is make sure that you hit your just general guidelines for staying active, fit, and healthy. So in Canada, the national guidelines are 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity per week in bouts of 10 minutes or less. So that to me is a base thing. I wouldn't even call that training. That's just health. That is, it works out to like 20 minutes per day of walking or something like that. So especially right now, if you're not commuting by walking or biking or something like that, making sure that you have some time where you go for a walk around the neighborhood, 10 or 20 minutes per day, I think is absolutely massive, not just for like cardiac health and stuff like that, and blood pressure and these kind of things, but as a means of recovery itself. If you have a hard training session, one of the things that will help you recover the most is blood flow and or improving your blood flow. And although we can do fancy things to make that happen, from massage to contrast training to contrast exposure, all these other different methods, the most simple way is just to do low-level activity. Maybe even, dare I say it, some low steady state aerobic work, which got absolutely, hammered on for the last 10 years or more in the S&C world for some reason, but is an absolutely viable and smart training thing to chase and progress, as well as all the other performance qualities.
Yeah.
I think those are the big ones, and then maybe the more fun ones, because of course people want to talk about the fun ones, the ones that you pay money for, that are going to fix everything in 10 minutes, not the meditation, not the breath, not the 20-minute walk, the stuff you got to put your effort in to do, right? So the fun stuff. Well, one, I think massage is huge. I'm a massive believer in having a manual therapist of some description. I've floated between osteopaths and massage therapists. Float tanks, I'm a huge fan of. I've spent many hours, God knows where, in those float tanks, drifting off into the abyss. Yeah, so a big believer in those. I haven't done those recently. And cold water immersion is another one that I'm a fan of. I think it's being taken to a bit of an extreme cult level kind of thing with Wim Hof right now, but the basic premise of what he's saying is great. For sure. I have nothing but thumbs up for everything he's doing.
Yeah.
Just the character.
Yeah, but yeah, a hilarious character.
Hilarious character, yeah, for sure.
What a guy. And then, word on the street is, I remember you posted up something on the EP page about a creatine and lion's mane infusion. I wonder if you could, I think that, well, maybe there's some more ingredients, but if you could maybe shed some light on Cian's special.
Cian special, yeah. So that was really from research into the world of nootropics, or for anyone who doesn't know that, that's just basically supplementation targeted for your brain.
Right.
Yeah, so personally, I was feeling quite foggy and just needing a bit of a ramp up with a lot of projects that go on at work, and was always interested in nootropics regardless of someone, as you might be able to tell from the training concepts, I do spend a lot of time thinking. So definitely, if I can enhance that, I'm going to look into it. But nootropics are classically very expensive when you get them pre-made. On it obviously have made them very famous in the last 3 to 5 years. But it's not cheap to go on them long term. So I just wanted to toe myself into that world again. Just B standard. I'm all about that. Just get B standard going before you decide if you want to get A standard going. Don't freaking think about and research A standard for 4 months before you start doing something. And again, that applies to everything. Train, just get going. Get to B standard. So B standard for me, having looked into it, was creatine and lion's mane. So creatine actually, I had obviously taken before for performance enhancements. It is a base level fuel, adenosine triphosphate, or however you pronounce that between Europe and North America. I'm so confused at this point. But ATP, it fuels up your ATP, which is a short-term fuel supply, allows you to do a little bit more training in the gym consistently over time. That will allow you to build up your weights more. You'll get stronger more. It just allows you to do more in the gym. That's really all it is. But in addition to that, what I didn't know is that how much ATP is utilized in your brain. Again, we talked about it real quick in the undergraduate world, but when you're so interested in high performance, that you forget that bit. And the bit that made me remind that actually was my wife Lynn has gone through several bad concussions over her life, and from researching supplements to help concussions, one of the things that came up for that was actually supplementing with creatine. The concept there being that when you get a concussion, your brain, being like jello, gets knocked between the skull, so it bounces off either side. And when that happens, it causes the synapses to fire, which depletes all your energy, because basically the only time it should fire, it releases ATP, and that's when the signaling processes are happening either in your brain or in your muscles. But when your brain gets knocked around, it causes all of the firing to happen, and you actually massively deplete your ATP stores. So one of the recommendations that they've made is to supplement with creatine immediately after impact, even before symptoms kick in. And in that window of, I think it's like 2 to 5 days, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, creatine supplementation post-concussion can really help offset some of the symptoms and get people back to normal levels faster. So with that in my brain, and also training consistently, that was one I wanted to see, did it make a difference? And then lion's mane is out of all the mushrooms, I think have been gaining popularity over the last year or two and are only going to gain more popularity. There's a whole handful of them, and maybe taking a mixture is the best. But again, be standard. Let's get going on one. Lion's Mane is the one that seems to do a lot of good stuff for alertness, maybe, or cognitive function or creativity. I even find memory is a little bit better on it. So the two of those together, with vitamin D as well, I would say, more so mood related in the winter months, but that definitely has a mood enhancement factor to it. And the last thing in that post that I didn't actually include, but I've also massively reduced sugar intake, specifically for brain reasons, not for any other reason. So that's been torturous, but I've actually maintained it during all of this. So like 8 weeks with no sweets.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so that's a little background thing. But and then, in all honesty, what I've noticed a massive difference, but who's to say, is it really each one? I mean, if I was a real scientist, I would have done one at a time and figured out, the exact response from each. So if you're unsure about one, take it out, start off with just one or two, see how that affects you, and then add in. And to that list, the only thing I would consider adding is fish oil. I might add that in as well. And the general gist is you're just trying to keep the ability to send a signal really high, and keep the ability for that signal to travel at high speeds. That's the two things: the impulse of it, and then how well it goes down, how much of it gets to where it needs to get. So that's the base level of what we're trying to achieve when we supplement with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and do you do that on like a 5 out of 7 day rotation, or every other day, or
every day?
Every day.
Yeah, nonstop. Yeah, and then I should say that creatine is at the standard dosage of around 5 grams. The Lion's Mane, again, standard dosage. I think it's a gram or so, or something like that. Anyway, whatever the bottle says. But the vitamin D is one thing that I take way more of. I personally take anywhere between 3,000 and 8,000 IUs per day, which is substantially more than what is recommended. So that's what I personally do. Again, you research it yourself, but that's where I arrived at finding a level that affected my body in a positive way. So I'd encourage people to do their own research around that one.
Absolutely.
But potentially more than what they're recommending on vitamin D.
Vitamin D. Yeah, I've been using creatine for probably the last year. I do a 5-day cycle, 5 out of 7. I find it to be super useful. Both, cognitive, like decision making. Like, I don't find any fog when I'm on it. And just training levels. Just I do notice a difference when it comes, especially more so before this all kicked off with actually lifting. Yeah, my lifts, I could see and feel the.
Well, it's going to be the top end. So it's either lifting a heavy weight or it's sprinting. Yeah, that's when you'll really notice it.
Yeah.
You'll also notice it doing hypertrophy work, but really it's the top end stuff. It's either it's max force, either at high velocity, i.e. sprinting, or with maximal intensity, i.e. lifting really heavy weights. That's when it shines through.
Yeah. Now, another little bit just to finish up with here, Cian, and before we let you go, is I know that you've been going down the skills acquisition route during this time, learning new tricks on the bike, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, actually, keeping up with.
I'm entertaining someone.
Yeah, no, because I know exactly what you're going through there's something about the journey of learning a trick that is very unique, and you've either gone through it in board sports or wheeled sports or whatever it is, or you haven't. And for those of you that have, and I'm sure plenty of people listening to this will have, it's quite a unique journey, and it's very bloody rewarding, no matter how useful or important the trick might be. On a personal level, it's very rewarding. And I wondered if you could, I want to take the specific rolling up the kicker on your bike and then rolling backwards and doing a 180 on the bike coming off that. That's the timeline I've seen over the last couple of weeks. What process did you take, if you can think of it, if it comes to mind, to nail that specific? I mean, I'm trying to dig out the formula here for learning anything, but you've done it. I've seen you do it with that specific thing, and I saw week 1 when you couldn't do it, and I saw a few days later when you nailed it. What did you do to do it?
So skill acquisition. I think one of the one of the things that I didn't do in that regard is to get a good coach, because man, that speeds everything up.
Interesting.
When it
Yeah.
comes to learning skills, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you can get a coach, regardless of if it's learning music or learning how to move your body or whatever, yoga, anything, having a highly skilled coach is going to speed that up at a level that can't even be comprehended, because it stops you going down the wrong path for a long period of time, or developing bad techniques at the early stages that then you have to work so hard to get rid of down the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would obviously be number one. But then number two, I think, and this is directly from research, is if you can build in a feedback loop, and you can self-learn. Whereas if there isn't a feedback loop, it can be very hard. So an example of that would be if you're taking a 2-point free throw, there's a feedback loop. The ball either goes into the net or it doesn't. So the shot was successful or it was not. And you can just literally keep shooting, and eventually you'll start nailing 2-point free throws. If you could just stand there forever, it might take you a few days, but you'll get there. Without a feedback loop, you won't necessarily get there. Deadlifting in the gym is an example, and that's why some people can deadlift for a decade and still have a terrible deadlift. There isn't a feedback loop in that. I mean, maybe you could say you stood up and stood down, but like from a technical point of view, it doesn't really green light it or not. So, you could use maybe some technology to help you out with that. For me, in the bike example, I have a feedback loop because I either fall off the bike or I do the trick. But not all things that you're learning will have that. So if they don't
balance, is that a balanced feedback loop? Is that the key there, or is it a mixture of balance and the trick being successful?
Both, yeah, totally. So there's a few different levels to it. So maybe linking that to the gym as an example, like one of the things that we're big components of is putting in environmental constraints so that your options for movements are limited, so that you're kind of like the answer isn't given to you, but you're being put on a path where you'll self-learn that answer, or you're being guided to the answer.
Yeah,
I think
that's
where the fastest, best learning happens. The worst thing you can do as a coach is just give them the answer, because again, their attention we're talking about this at the start, is minimal. They might be able to do the workout that day, but they don't really remember it the next day. Whereas if you have that feedback loop and they self-learn, and then the real goal with the situation you're trying to put together is can you guide them quickly to the right answer? And when they're starting to go down the wrong answer, do you maybe need to then change the exercise or drill that you're doing so you can find them in the way that they are now starting to go, and you stop that early, and you almost like training a dog, you go in the other direction. So yeah, maybe not as specific to, that's kind of more of a fancy answer.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And putting that back into one last thing, I think you got to incorporate play and fun, because at the end of the day, any skill that's challenging to learn is going to take hours and hours of practice. And if that's annoying, boring, frustrating practice, focused on the outcome too much, I don't think that's really enjoyable, and you won't come back to it. Whereas if you can add an element of play, where you can laugh at when it goes wrong, self-competition. Like once I nailed the trick, it wasn't like, okay, sweet, I'm done. It's right. How can I do it 5 times in a row without falling? And then I love that because I'm competitive. And then when I've got 4 in a row and I'm going for the 5th, and I mess up the 5th, and I'm like, have to start all over again to try and get 5 in a row again. Like I laugh at myself in that moment, because it's like, it's all self-imposed, fun stuff. But at the end of the day, it's keeping me out there practicing for 20 minutes longer than I would otherwise do it. So I think that's a key component. The 2 things, built-in feedback loop, environmental constraints, maybe as a concept to think about, but that's a bit technical, and play and have fun. Time and time again, if the research shows, if you're having fun, you learn way faster, your retention is way faster. And that would go for coaching in the gym too. I think especially when things get too technical, to think of Olympic lifting again, it can suck the fun out of a training session so damn fast. And I think to get it back at being fun is really important. It's often a missed thing when we're just chasing performance qualities in the gym, but it has to be fun.
Yeah, 100%. Cian, for people that want to get involved with EP and the online and the future, arguably the unknown future of where we're going, where can they find more about services you offer, signing up and social media, stuff like that?
Yeah, so our website, enhancedperformance.ca, that is still a little bit dated from a month ago when we were still open, or maybe more than that at this point. We do have an online landing page up there now where you can get most of the information. But if you want completely up-to-speed stuff, I would go to our Instagram and just read through the last handful of posts there. That's where the most current information is. So those are the two primary spots. My personal handle is Coach Cian, Coach_Cian on Instagram. And yeah, those are kind of the two key areas. And then maybe if there's any coaches out there, know that we do also, aside from just online training for general population, we do have a certification process. We've been beta testing that. It's come out of beta now this year. It's been 2 years in its full phase, but we beta tested it for previous 3 years. So that's a legit program for any coaches who really want to take this on a little bit more. Get the sped up version of an undergrad in a short period of time, and understand the why a little bit more. Not just how, but the why of why we do all of this stuff in the gym, because there is a reason for everything. Keep asking why. That's one of the things I ask a lot of our people who mentor with us.
Yeah, fantastic. You're definitely one of the most knowledgeable coaches I've ever met, mate. I learn every time I speak to you. So, Cian, thanks so much for jumping on the show, mate. I'll make sure that's all in the show notes for everyone. Yeah, and keep enjoying learning, keep pushing those tricks, brother. I keep want to seeing those new tricks coming out. And
it's all coming for something special. All of this rollback stuff. We're not at the creme de la creme yet. There's another month or two of practice, and I'll have some sweet moves. Hopefully, it's just there's 5 separate skills I need to learn, and I have 3.5 of them now. And then I just need to put them all together, and we'll be the coolest kid on the block.
Yeah, fantastic. We've just scratched the surface today, Cian. I'd love to get you back on again and maybe go a bit deeper into the certification and that side of things. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, the sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. cbdmountain.com